Good evening, you're watching Nation at 9. I'm Neha Khanna. Our big focus tonight. When the leaders of the world's largest democracy and oldest democracy met at the White House last night, yes, there were the bear hugs that many had expected and which offered great optics. But something very, very significant and possibly game-changing also happened. Prime Minister Modi and President Trump not only agreed on the need for India and the US to join hands and together fight the scourge of terrorism, the two leaders also in fact, trained their guns on Pakistan, arguably the biggest fountainhead of global terror in the world today. Gone are the days when India would cry itself hoarse about Pakistan-sponsored terrorism and how it was bleeding India, and the Western world would pay little or no attention as it barely impacted them. Today, the world's lone superpower, the United States, is on India's side in recognizing Pakistan's role in exporting terror to India and several other parts of the world, including Afghanistan, where US strategic interests are directly on the line and have been hurt repeatedly by terror groups enjoying the patronage of Pakistan's deep state. And so even before the two leaders formally met last night, the US took a major step forward by designating as a global terrorist Syed Salahuddin, the leader of the Hizbul Mujahideen, who has stoked terror in the Kashmir Valley from his base in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir since 1989. The step has been hailed as a huge win for India and a massive blow to Pakistan, but the US didn't stop at that. The joint statement issued by the two leaders named Pakistan and called on that country to stop allowing terror groups to use its soil for their nefarious acts and to bring the perpetrators of the 26/11 Mumbai attacks, the Pathankot attack and other terror attacks carried out in India to justice. Unlike the Bush and Obama years, this time there was no hesitation on part of the US to call a spade and name Pakistan and call it out on its increasingly dangerous role in spreading terror across the globe, including here in India. And so the question we're asking tonight is it time for Pakistan to wake up and smell the coffee? After this body blow to its already tainted global image, is it time for Pakistan to realize that its lies and falsehoods lie completely exposed and that it's no longer India alone but the world which is now looking at Pakistan as a state sponsor of terror, and that Islamabad's terror shops are perhaps under a graver threat than ever before? Also, does this significant step forward put to rest all the doubts and uncertainty that India may have felt about Donald Trump, the man infamous for his unpredictability? Does India now have a true friend indeed in the White House? And crucially, will President Trump follow up on his first big, bold move with even greater measures to clamp down on Pakistan-sponsored terror to ensure that the progress achieved so far doesn't end up as merely a symbolic gesture?
That Syed Salahuddin has committed or poses a significant risk of committing acts of terrorism. Designations of terrorist individuals and groups expose and isolate organizations and individuals and result in denial of access to the US financial system. Moreover, designations can assist or complement the law enforcement actions of other nations.
But if you thought Pakistan would finally strike a more humble tone, then you would be mistaken, because the press statement from the Pakistan Foreign Office actually claimed that Salahuddin, without naming him, was actually a freedom fighter and insisted that Pakistan would continue to fight for those who are actually fighting the war of Kashmir.
All right, let's now take a look at some of the big questions we're asking tonight. Have Trump's moves on terror dealt a body blow to Pakistan? Is Pakistan now globally recognized as a state sponsor of terror? Is Pakistan's isolation now complete? Can we expect the US to clamp down on Pakistani terror groups further? Will the Trump administration now slash financial and military aid to Pakistan? Has the Modi-Trump meet taken the India-US relationship to the next level? Is Donald Trump indeed a true friend of India's? Let's take that straight across to our panel. We're joined by Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad, defense expert, Ambassador Shiv Shankar Mukherjee, former diplomat, Arslan Bhatti, Bureau Chief of Dunia News, joining us from Pakistan via Skype. We're also joined by Hamal Haider, a Baluchi activist who is joining us from London. And we're also hoping to be joined on the show a bit later by Professor M.D. Nalapat, Editorial Director of the Sunday Guardian. All right, Ambassador Mukherjee, let me kick this debate off with you. Syed Salahuddin being designated a global terrorist and Pakistan being named categorically as the country that needs to stop allowing terror groups from operating from its soil. How big a win is this for India? Perhaps never before has the US been willing to go that far in pinning Pakistan down over its role in spreading terror, especially here in India. For example, Obama was never comfortable naming Pakistan, was he? Therefore, do you feel this is a huge first in India-US ties?
I wouldn't say it's a first. There have been statements from the US before asking Pakistan to bring the perpetrators of Mumbai and Pathankot and so on to justice. There have been also, I think, occasional statements about not using their territory as a safe haven for terrorists. But yes, in the context, I would certainly say this is an achievement. This is a significant move on the part of the US. It is encouraging for India. It reflects, I think, years of patient, persistent, persuasive diplomacy with the United States about trying to exhort them to play a more forceful role in pressurizing Pakistan to stop being a state sponsor of terrorism, to stop exporting terrorism, and so on. And we must also see this in the context. This is the first meeting between the Indian Prime Minister and President Trump. To have this as a statement right at this meeting, in part of the joint statement, as part of their statements to the media, and the importance that their words, they used, the importance they gave to it, shows that there will be at least an equal, if not more, of at least kind of appreciation of our stand from the US side. Having said that, and also underlining that the fact that it was done just a few hours before the meeting between the two leaders also shows, I think, America's desire to at least assuage India's feelings, to accommodate India's concerns in this regard. Having said that, it is not the case that it will be any different from similar sanctioning earlier. Pakistan will always be in denial. Pakistan will always make token gestures of house arrest and so on. These farcical moves, PR moves to show that they are not really state sponsors of terrorism.
Absolutely, that's a valid point you make, Ambassador
Mukherjee. Victim card, as they always have. They themselves are victims of terrorism. All that will play out as before. But I think it is still significant. It is diplomacy consists of, patient, cumulative gains, and what has happened is a good thing for us. It's a good thing for the Americans to come out openly, even if it has, even if it is not followed by immediate action on the ground. Finally, we should not expect that the Americans or anybody else will irresistibly coerce Pakistan into handing over terrorists to us. There's a lot of heavy lifting that we have to do.
That's perhaps not going to happen anytime soon, and a lot of heavy lifting that will still have to be done by India. This is really a war for India to fight. Let me take this to Professor Nalapat. Professor Nalapat, yes, this has been hailed as a big victory for India, whether it is the joint statement that names Pakistan and its role in the spread of terror, or Syed Salahuddin being designated as a global terrorist. But my job is to play the devil's advocate, and that's what I'm going to do. There are also fears that have been expressed by some that in substantive terms, what exactly does this really mean, given that in the past you've also had a Hafiz Saeed being designated a global terrorist by the US. The man has a bounty of $10 million on his head, and yet nothing really seems to have changed on the ground. You have him carrying on with his terror activities just as usual. So the question really is that before we start patting ourselves on the back, do we need to perhaps wait and watch where this goes? Could this in some ways as of now be just a symbolic gesture?
Neha, when I said in June 2015 that it is my calculation that Donald Trump would be the next president of the United States, there were a lot of smiles and quite a bit of laughter.
Right.
I would like to say very clearly, I have a very different view from Ambassador Mukherjee. My view is based on the reason is very simple. Donald Trump does not have among his advisors people who have been advising the US government on Pakistan, on Afghanistan for the last 20, 30, 40 years.
Okay.
And frankly, leading them into one disaster after the other.
All right. Unfortunately, we seem to have lost the line there too, Professor Nalapat. He was, of course, making an important point that perhaps we're going to see the Windsor chain blowing under the Trump administration, and we've already seen evidence of that. We'll try and reconnect with him in just a moment. Before that, let me now go across to Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad. Sir, the question is that, yes, it's perhaps a big step forward, but can we now realistically expect the US to follow up on these steps that have been taken? There has been a lot of talk about stripping the Pakistan of its non-NATO ally status and slashing military and financial aid to Pakistan. Yet, sir, fact of the matter is Pakistan remains the second biggest beneficiary of US aid after Afghanistan. So the question is that, are we going to see more change on the ground? Because this, while it may be an important step, is not enough.
Well, I'll go forward from where Ambassador Mukherjee left, and I generally endorse what he said. But I look at it completely differently, and I look at it far more positively. I will take you back to September of 2016 when the Prime Minister made a statement saying that after the Uri incident, that the military will carry out tactical actions as they deem fit at a place and time of their choosing, and I shall at the national level and international level develop a strategic response. I see this visit and the outcome of this visit one more step ahead in the development of the strategic option that the Indian government will be wanting to plan or are planning. While in the past similar things have happened and nothing great has happened, Salahuddin has been declared and Hafiz Saeed has been declared.
Right.
Business goes on as usual.
Correct.
I don't see any change in that. But it is an indicator that there is a serious view taken by United States. I want to make 2-3 more points. Firstly, Pakistan is an important country for America, and if we think America is going to fight the war on terror for us against Pakistan,
that is not
going to happen.
Correct.
What is indicated by this joint statement is couple of important sentences in that joint statement.
Right.
Firstly, categorically, the President of the United States said that we will fight terrorism together. We will destroy their bases, safe havens and sanctuaries. We have advised Pakistan not to permit the use of its territory for perpetrating terrorism into India. And all of these are indicative to reassure India that if you wish to destroy these, you will have our support. Support not in terms of military backing, support in terms of the concept.
In fact, Prime Minister Modi also pointed out how no country questioned us on our surgical strike.
We will assist. 1 minute, can I finish?
Yes, sir.
Can I finish? Can I finish? And we will assist you in developing capabilities to take what missions you want to take. We'll give you drones, we'll give you F-16s, you look after Indian Ocean, you look after South China Sea, there are major exercises coming. So they think India is an important power in Southeast Asia and the Asia Pacific region, and they will encourage us to build our capabilities. Now it is for us and our Prime Minister to see how these capabilities are used to translate what Trump has said, to destroy their bases. Therefore, I see this as a positive step for India, getting backing from the superpower to say, go ahead and destroy their bases. You've done a surgical strike, that may not have been enough. If you wish to do anything more than that, go and do what you feel like you have our support.
Right.
If we want to defeat radical terrorism, we want to defeat these people who are perpetrating terrorism on you. So it's a very positive thinking.
All right.
We've got to do our own job. America or nobody else is. He went to Russia.
Correct.
He spoke about terrorism. He went to Germany, he spoke about terrorism. He went to France, he spoke about terrorism. He went to Portugal, he spoke about terrorism.
That's
He's now in the US speaking about terrorism. On 4th of July, he's going to Israel speaking about terrorism. He's developing a world support. He already said that I had support on the surgical strike.
Right.
Now, what other things I'm going to do? Well, I don't know what he's going to do.
All right.
Certainly, the people who need to be punished are not just the terrorists themselves or their bases, but the people who are promoting them.
Exactly,
It is the
people
Pakistan Army.
who are
Therefore,
sheltering
in
them.
this region,
Correct.
from where terrorism is emanating,
Yes.
the Pakistan Army needs to be taken to task. And which is the strategic response that is under development in India.
All right. You make an important point there, General Prasad, and I think this is something most of us would agree with. Ultimately, this is a war that India has to fight on its own. But yes, the US has given enough of an indication that it is now on our side. In fact, Prime Minister Modi there also made the point while addressing the Indian diaspora that no country questioned India's surgical strikes that were carried out last year. All right, let me now go across to our Pakistani guest, Arslan Bhatti, senior journalist, who joins us via Skype. Mr. Bhatti, my question to you is very simple. If you recall, we talked about this barely 3 days ago, and you said Pakistan was absolutely calm and not worried at all about which way the Modi-Trump meeting would go. I want to ask you now, sir, you've seen what happened. Syed Salahuddin is designated a global terrorist, and you saw the joint statement, the strongly worded joint statement that was issued by the two leaders, squarely blaming Pakistan for the terror that is emanating from its soil and telling Islamabad to crack down on those terror groups. My question is, Mr. Bhatti, shouldn't Pakistan be very, very worried today that its lies and falsehoods lie completely exposed, and that you may have enjoyed the patronage of the West all these years, perhaps under the Bush and the Obama administrations, but that winds of change are perhaps finally blowing in under the Trump administration? Things are not going to be easy for Pakistan.
First of all, did you go through the statement of Pakistan Foreign Office today, which was issued in the evening? It's clearly notified, it's clearly written that Kashmiris cannot be denied the right to self-determination.
Mr. Bhatti, okay, now, you're forcing me to intervene. I wanted to let you talk, but you're forcing me to intervene. Yes, Pakistan continues to call this man a freedom fighter. But, sir, this is my point. This man is now a globally designated terrorist. And you continue to call him a freedom fighter, which is why I'm saying that Pakistan's lies and falsehoods, sir, today lie exposed, and Pakistan should be very worried, given that winds of change are now finally blowing. Sir, because this is the Trump administration, and perhaps you are not going to be pampered anymore the way you have been all these years.
Trump administration has nothing to do with Pakistan foreign policy. Pakistan is an independent country, and it knows what was going on in the world. Pakistan is more strategically important than India for the United States. That should be known to the Indian panelists.
So what do you make of the fact that the newly elected president of the United States, Donald Trump, in that joint statement issued with Prime Minister Modi, names Pakistan categorically and says this country cannot be allowed to carry on the way it has so far? The terror groups operating from its soil need to be cracked down on. What do you make of that statement?
Islamabad has firm belief and resolve to eliminate every terrorist group, every terrorist from its soil, when and where
Mr.
they
Bhatti,
are
why do you think every country today sees Pakistan as a fountainhead of terror? Why do you think every country today calls on Pakistan to crack down on terror groups operating from its soil? Are we all imagining things, sir?
Let me answer. When a suicide bomber comes out from a house, does Indians know that he's a suicide bomber? No.
I don't know what that question means. I don't know what that means.
Let me explain.
And your country is not even embarrassed, sir, that you continue to play host. You continue to play host to people who have been designated as global terrorists. Hafiz Saeed, Syed Salahuddin. And then, of course, there is Zakir Rahman Lakhvi, who was wanted in 26/11, and then there is Dawood Ibrahim, who was wanted in the 1993 serial Mumbai blast.
My dear anchor, there are no
and there is Maulana Masood Azhar.
In Indian minds, every Pakistani is a terrorist. This is not on.
Okay, so that is the
4 or
problem
5
with
fingers are not
Pakistan.
equal.
You will remain in denial. Okay, I have to go close to our Baluch. I have to go close to our Baluch guest, Hamal Haider, also joining us live from London tonight. Mr. Haider, is this Pakistan's problem? They refuse to end this denialism. But what is your view of what you saw happen at the White House last night? Do you believe that Pakistan is now completely isolated and the only all-weather friend it's probably left with today is China?
I think Pakistan should be isolated. The world has come to know that what's Pakistan doing in that particular region, and they know quite clearly what has Pakistan done in the past and how it is supporting Islamist. I disagree with my Pakistani friend that Pakistan is taking actions against Islamic groups. This is completely false, and I know that Pakistan is creating more and more terrorist groups, especially in Balochistan, as I belong to Balochistan and I live there, and I know how Pakistani agencies, Pakistani ISI and military intelligence, MI, are creating new terrorist groups in order to undermine the just nationalist movement of
fighters, perhaps. For them, the Baluchis are terrorists, unfortunately. That's the reality of Pakistan today.
Exactly. We are fighting a war for freedom of Balochistan. We have nothing to do with Islamic groups. Our fight is a just fight.
All right, Mr. Haider, I'm running out of time. All right, I'm sorry, I'm running out of time. I will have to quickly go across to my other panelists for a last word. Ambassador Mukherjee, this is the problem with Pakistan. Their attitude is not going to change. They continue to call Syed Salahuddin a freedom fighter. So point is, where does India go from here? We may have made some progress vis-a-vis our talks with Donald Trump, but ultimately this is a war for us to fight, isn't it?
Look, we have to continue to do what we have been doing, but do it much more intensively. Since this discussion started with the proscribing of Syed Salahuddin, another one in the list of terrorists from Pakistan that have been proscribed, those who are actively being used as state assets of the military establishment of Pakistan. Let me just say this. I really don't see why the general mentioned that he had a different take, because much of what he said was exactly, I think, in line with what I was saying.
Right.
That this is significant. At the very least, it allows us, there are two streams in our policies. One is active opposition to Pakistan's terrorism, teaching them, using force against their attempts to terrorize India and to cause them to desist. Direct action, as far as we can take it, and that will change with the dynamics. The other is to isolate Pakistan internationally through diplomacy. And this, at the very least, helps us in that effort in the UN, in our bilateral talks with the host of nations around the world.
It helps us at the UN and other international fora. Ambassador Mukherjee, I'm sorry, I have run out of time.
This is another very strong talking point.
Another very strong talking point. All right, General Prasad, I can only give you 20 seconds. Wrap this up for us. A major diplomatic victory for India, for starters?
On the ground.
Yes, definitely, but I think word about isolation of Pakistan is not going to go very far. Time has come that we physically have to take some action, and we have got the okay. We got the clearance of America to do what we need to do, and we need to punish these people who are perpetrating terrorism into India.
Absolutely.
That punishment needs to be physical. That losses that are going to be inflicted on them needs to come now.
All right, a cost has to be imposed on Pakistan. That is something India needs to do on its own. Professor Nalapat, wrap this up for us. Very quickly, sir.
Well, the first point is that so far as India and Pakistan are concerned, our economy is 5 times bigger. We are the most important country so far as the Indian Ocean is concerned. The Indo-Pacific is now the main theater of geopolitical conflict and opportunity. But I'd like to say I've been very heartened by two things. One, Prime Minister Modi very boldly went ahead and talked about the surgical strike on US soil
Yes.
to a US audience.
Correct.
I mean, these are NRIs, but they're Americans.
Right.
And if it was Obama administration, the very next day there would have been some, oh my God, well, why has he said this? Some,
All
you know, some comments in the press
Okay.
or some behind the scenes, something like that.
All right.
There was no reaction at all.
Okay.
Which basically bears out what General Shankar Prasad is saying.
All
and
right.
the second thing is Afghanistan. The US president is publicly welcoming India as a partner in Afghanistan.
All right.
This same country welcomed Pakistan 15 years ago.
Right.
And today it's welcoming India. If that
Absolutely.
is not a change, I don't know what is a change.
Well, clearly a big change is already being witnessed under the Trump administration, and perhaps one is also compelled to ask at this stage, have a lot of the doubts that India may have had about Donald Trump being infamous for his unpredictability now been put to rest given last night's significant developments? But we'll probably discuss and debate that another day. I'd like to thank all our panelists for joining us on this debate. Thanks very much.